Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, to get things started, I want to say Abby stays woke. I just wanted to say that at least once. All right, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to start getting a little more dynamic with my topics. Keep things all exciting or something. So today we're going to talk about an interesting issue. For anybody that's ever seen the movie Soylent Green, you'll understand a little bit about this. That's good stuff. And I'm also going to take one phrase. I want to talk about one of my most loved / most hated phrases. Love to hate it. So we're going to pick one of those today too. Okay, we're going to pick one of those today. In addition to the topic about related to Soylent Green. I believe I'm properly caffeinated, so that should assist in the tangential nature of this soliloquy, monologue. The first word was not properly used. Monologue is the proper term. All right. So, I heard a couple of arguments recently. I scanned a couple of Thug Life videos, and I heard a really great argument in one of them that was then quickly thugged out by the opposing view. But anyway, this man mentioned there are so many what he called spontaneous abortions. That because there are so many spontaneous abortions, that justifies the meaninglessness of life before birth. I was very interested in the fact that this man said, an older man, by the way. I don't think that he could still be alive. He was really old. Like, upper 80s, maybe in his 90s, older guy that was saying this. Who's speaking very educatedly. He believed what he was saying. Let me put it that way. And that's what's important, as we've discussed about opinions. Okay, he believed what he was saying. So keep that in consideration when I say what I'm saying. He believed what he was saying. He talked about spontaneous abortions being as high as 50% of all conception, so like 50% of all conception results in a spontaneous abortion, according to this guy. So this is all fine and dandy. Maybe that stat's true. Maybe it isn't. This was the rationale he was providing regarding an argument and a defense for humans not being living until they're born. First, he said that there was a Thomas Aquinas sort of belief that life was evidential at the point in time when a woman could feel the baby. He was kind of supporting that idea, but then he kind of threw that out of the water with this other spontaneous abortion on that idea because he believed it. It's really significant that he believed what he was saying. So I'd like to take that logic. Okay? So at the beginning of life, or at least the potential of life, let's say this. All conception has a potential for life. Maybe everybody could agree on that. Maybe. I don't know. But we'll see. Based on my opinion, I think all conception lends to a possibility of life. Let's go to the other end of the continuum of life. Okay? All death has the possibility of finality. There's a certain portion of people that have died by definition only to be resuscitated. There was a lack of finality to their alleged death. And sometimes they go on to live many more years after a they call it near-death experience, but in some cases it's by definition death, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, dead by definition. But there was a lack of finality to it, right? So in the same regard that conception has a possibility for life, death has only a possibility and not a necessity of finality. Okay? So we're going to go with this a little bit further, okay? So I want you to flip, like, what we're doing is we're doing like a juxtaposition of the conception and life argument, especially within the framework of the concept that because life might not happen, that justifies the intentional prevention of life from happening. All right, so on the flip side, with death resulting in the possibility of finality, because there's a chance that something could be final. So I'm trying to create an analogy of connecting the word life with the word not death, but the word finality. Okay, so think of life as resulting in something. Life is the thing that keeps going. Finality is also the thing that keeps going. Okay, so that I don't believe it. I believe what I'm saying because it's my opinion, and if opinions are definitely eternal, like we've discussed before. If you don't understand, I think it was my second or third video. Just look it up chronologically. Something, I don't know. You'll figure it out. So I'm trying to connect the word death with the word finality. Not death. I'm trying to connect the word finality with the word life. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. It's a little confusing, but I'm trying to build the picture here. Make sure you understand the analogy. Okay, so because there's a chance of non-finality and continuation, we'll call continuation the opposite of finality. There's a potential for a continuation of life. Because that's not advantageous. Okay. So I want you to think about all of the, I'm going to use the word for sake of being, I don't want to be misconstrued here. It's a sensitive topic. It really is a sensitive topic. And I have children, okay? Children I deeply love and care about forever. non-sarcastically. I value their life, their continuation. I also have seasoned individuals in my life. Just, they've earned the title of old. I think it's a respectful title. So to not be misconstrued, I love these people. This is a thought experiment, just to be clear. I want to make sure that that's understood. It's an exercise of mental gymnastics. It's just thought and discourse on a subject for the sake of understanding the whole concept more thoroughly. And I'm using something that seems absurd to help you more clearly understand the subject as a whole. Okay. So, what we have here is there are individuals that will suggest that life is a burden, and that dependence from you, when somebody is dependent on you, that is a limiting factor to your life, and you have the right to choose whether or not you are going to allow somebody to be dependent on you. I want you to understand my words. Think about my words in a very literal sense. People want the ability to choose to be in control of whether or not they will have a dependent, somebody that is dependent upon themselves. Inasmuch that there is value in that idea, I'm going to perpetuate, I'm going to expound, I'm going to expand that idea. Why was there a cease? I don't remember I don't know. Was there a, I don't know. I'm looking for a speed limit sign here. Guys, are we still going 20? Is there a in-school zone? Yeah, it was way back there. It was at the red light. Alright, so let's expand that idea. In as much as there could be value in the idea that you get to choose who is dependent, or whether or not you have dependence with a T, not CE. They sound the same. I'm not talking about you being dependent, I'm talking about you having a dependent. Okay? If there is value in that concept, let's go further with, let's make sure that we're consistent with that concept. And this is where Soylent Green comes in. Okay? Because I think that they believed in freedom of choice. And what do they call it? Pro-choice. Pro-choice. That's what they call it. So with pro-choice, let's be consistent. If you are pro-choice and you want the ability, and I know what you're saying, you're like, you just got triggered because I connected the dots for you. You're triggered and you're going, this isn't about having a dependent. This has nothing to do with that. Okay, slow down. Slow down. Slow down. This has to do with your autonomy. This has to do with a body. This has to do with your freedom to not be out of control, to be able to make a choice regarding your own facilities, so on and so on, ad infinitum. Yes. Yes. Okay. I'll get to that. I'm discussing another component of an influencing factor that I know that some of you are certainly going to say, that's not even relevant. Fine. Then wait for my other points. Okay, if you don't believe that it's relevant, that having a dependent or not having a dependent and your ability to choose based on what you want, that having a dependent has nothing to do with the subject, fine. You know, wait for one of those comments that dissects this video and gives you the timestamp for when I start talking about your preferred topic within the subject, okay? But for the meantime, I'm going to discuss the dependent issue because it's related to Soylent Green, a loved movie. And more specifically, I think that Soylent Green was not a social commentary as much as it was as an instructional for how we should do life or death, which is what I'm getting at, finality. So it's about having a dependent. So at some point in time, a person is so incapable of caring for themselves in the same analogical way as they are when they're a baby. This has been pointed out many times. They talk about the circle of life. It comes back full round circle with having to be helped to be fed, having to be helped to be changed. We all know about this. In as much as the possibility that somebody sees that as a burden, whether or not, I'm not trying to make a judgment call as to whether they're right or wrong in that mentality. I'm just discussing that mentality. If there is someone that says that that's a burden, which I know that there's absolutely somebody out there that says that it's a burden. Okay, the same argument obviously is made with geriatric, the nature of geriatrics, the nature of retirement homes, retirement centers. There's facilities dedicated to handling that alleged burden. That burden that could otherwise be prevented with the instructional movie that we have in Soylent Green. This is going to be so misconstrued. But I want you to understand this from a philosophical and what's another? Very objective, because it's my opinion. Very objective point of view. So, in as much that somebody could say that having a baby is a burden, they can also say that having an old person that can't take care of themselves in the same way that a baby can't take care of themselves is also a burden. And we can prevent that if you just flip, it's like a reversal. So instead of preventing birth, which is what, obviously that's what abortion does, is it prevents birth. What is birth an analogy for? That would be, birth would be an analogy for finality. Not death per se, because death isn't final. It has the ability to not be final, as we discussed, in the same way that conception. I'm trying to link the words conception and death. Think of those words together, and then think of the words finality and life together. So, if we follow Soylent Green's logic, we can actually choose. We have freedom of choice, pro-choice. You're for the ability to choose to end the finalization of death for a person for the sake of defending against the burden, taking care of the person. You eliminate the need for dependence. If you can just end the person's continuation. End it. Like, if you've seen Soylent Green, you know what I'm talking about. There is just as much of an argument on this sliver of the topic. If you're going to talk about having a dependent, that is something that I think is able to be well defended. It would save countless dollars. You're talking about like balancing the national budget, all these sorts of things. It would be highly advantageous. There would be no need for social welfare. There would be no need for Medicare. That's the one. Probably Medicaid too. Because at some point, everybody could become a burden to society, and then if you follow that logic, what you can do for the sake of the ones that aren't a draw on society, once somebody becomes dependent on the system, they can be fuel for the system, right? It's seen in other movies in a more grand scale, like The Matrix, where we're all just batteries, copper top, blah blah blah. It's fun to think about. But what I'm saying is, either be independent, which means you're dependent within yourself or upon yourself, independent, right? In self. Or face the reality that you need to just be put back into the system. So once you no longer can provide for yourself and you're not contributing, you're not giving, and you're not taking, what you do, because it's the most respectful, loving, caring, beautiful thing you can do, once you can no longer give into society, what you do is you just give to society. You don't want to ever take from. You just give. It's a beautiful thing if you think about it. So you get an illness that causes you to be dependent, right? If you become handicapped, if you become old, you just give. Just give it. Just give your life. You just give it. And that creates a system where everybody's always contributing, right? In Soylent Green, they're contributing nutrients to the system, right? They're providing food. It's simple, and it's kind of a beautiful part of an ecosystem of something that is able to be continued forever. You never have to worry about overpopulation if you follow this logic. Again, I hate using that word. It's just the best word I can think of. This line of thinking, right? If you can follow this, it solves a lot of problems. And if you have a system where everybody is always just contributing, nobody wants anything. Nobody needs anything. Because once you need something, you just contribute yourself back into the system and let somebody benefit from that. Except nobody needs anything, but they still will benefit. Because when everybody's contributing into the system, everybody's more prosperous. It's good. But then once you need something, you're taking away from something everybody else could be receiving. Because it's like loans. It's like money that you're borrowing, right? We all know The only way to get a loan, to get something that you don't have, is if you don't need it in regards financially, because they want you to be able to pay it back and all that. We all know that loans work. You can only get money that you don't need. That's the way that it works. If you need money, like you need it right now, I need this. My family will fall apart if we don't get this. Once you need something, you're not going to get it. Like, that's just the way that it works. If you need it, you probably can't handle getting it, because why are you in the position that you need something in the first place? The fact that you're in a position that you need something means that you'll probably never repay that loan. So that's why they never loan to people that need the money. They only loan to people that don't need it, because that makes perfect sense. That's the way that it works. If you're giving something to somebody, you have to get it back. It's just the way that it works. Yeah. So think about all of that. Tie it back into this. I know that we still have this other topic. It's about autonomy. It's about autonomy. It's about your ability to choose for your own body. Okay? So that you have control of your own body. And nobody can tell you about your body. Nobody can tell you what to do with your body. Trying to flesh this one out. Ha! See what I did there? I do want to flesh this one out. Okay? First, let's think about the concept of, do you have full control of your body? Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I would say, tell your heart to skip a beat. Tell your heart to do a paradiddle. Put a little stethoscope. Listen. Tell me if you can get your heart to do a paradiddle for like 10 seconds. Some of y'all don't know what that is. It's okay. Left, right, I know. I don't know what it would sound like exactly, but okay, you saw the movie Santa Claus a long time ago. Get your heart to do that little rhythm. Okay, tell your heart to do that. Tell me if you have control over that. Oh, that's just an autonomous. That's just one of the aspects of your body that you don't have control of. Okay, fine. So there are aspects of your body that you don't have control over. Do you have the ability to remove your heart? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely you do. What would be the consequence of that? The consequence of removing your heart without a replacement would be probably death that was final. Probably. I think evidence indicates that without a heart you can't live. Can you remove anything else from your body and it not be a final a finality of your life to death? Yeah, sure, of course you can. People are doing it all the time, and it's celebrated, actually. There are people that are removing body parts that are not essential to their life. I mean, they're essential to the life of their future generations. I mean, it affects future generations, obviously. But they're being celebrated for having autonomy over their body. I'm not here to judge whether or not that should be celebrated necessarily. A good time for the phrase, not that there's anything wrong with that. You make up your own mind. I'm just discussing this as a means to discuss the logic. Okay, just discussing the logic. So you can take that into consideration. Take that into consideration. I need to finish this idea, so we will try to finish this up a little bit. All right, so what we're doing here. All right. Your buddy. As I said, people are being celebrated. All you've been hearing this entire time was the extremely loud air, I'm sure. That's fantastic. I just realized that you probably didn't hear a lot of what I said because I had the defrost on unnecessarily. I'm sorry for that. Who knows? Who knows what the audio quality will be like? All right, autonomy over your body. People are being celebrated for removing aspects of their body that are not necessary for their personal life. Yes, they affect the future generations of other lives. That's not relevant. Except it is. It connects. It does connect. It connects also to a previous video I had about self-hatred. If you have the determination to prevent future generations of you have that determination to do that, you are doing that beautiful thing that I discussed of self-hatred, the much globally loved concept of self-hatred. It is one of the greatest forms of self-hatred if you determine that you would never want to perpetuate or propagate your genetics for future generations. I think that that's probably one of the greatest forms of self-hatred, which is excellent. As I discussed in my self-hatred video, we all understand why that would be such a good thing. Because self-hatred is to be sought. It's something that we clearly understand to be beneficial. Clearly. Autonomy over your body. Discussing what we have the ability to remove without affecting our life. So, in as much that you can remove body parts or aspects of yourself that still allow you to live without ending your life in a final way, obviously that's possible. Who's to say what's beneficial? I would say that ending the opportunity for oh no, I don't know what happened there. Wow, it paused. Ooh, I don't know how much you missed. Ay, that's annoying. I'm sorry. I should have been paying attention. Look into the camera. I should have been paying attention. I'm sorry about that. So what I was saying, I don't know how much you missed, but what I was saying was control over your body. It means your ability to remove a part of yourself that prevents the future propagation of your genetics is a great form of self-hatred. It's a great form of hatred towards the world. At what I was trying to say, and then I noticed, hate, don't take that word in a negative way. Like a lot of people give that word a bad reputation. It's not necessarily a bad word, hate. It means that you're ignoring or neglecting something to the utmost degree. So So some things are worth ignoring, obviously. In certain people's opinion, living on this planet is something worth being ignored, neglected, avoided in a lot of ways. It's really beautiful if you think about it. I think I'm finally being able to shape this into a good shape, like a sphere, one of our favorite shapes, the flat sphere. All right, so think about this. If you're willing to be the kind of person to say, I hate myself so much that I am willing to stay here on this planet suffering in the context of reality, suffering, and I also hate myself so much that I would never propagate my genetics and pass it on and allow somebody else to suffer, in reality, it's like a version of love. If you think about it, it's like loving. If you hate yourself enough and you hate the world enough, then to prevent the propagation of your genetics is love. Right? If you have the ability to choose who lives and who dies, as you obviously have the ability to do, in as much as you have the ability to chop off your own body parts, because you have the right to do that, obviously. Your ability to do that is kind of like the power to have control over showing love or not showing love. So maybe in regards to this question of should we put to rest in a final way anyone who is a burden, anyone who is dependent on the system, on society, just go ahead and end them in a final way as a form of love and helping the society and the system. And also the other reverse side that people love to talk about, and being pro-choice, put to end because you have a choice to. It's all about you, and it is all about you, because who else could it possibly be about? If life and the world and the universe and everything isn't all about you, what else could it be about? I mean, logically, that I know I don't believe in logic, and nobody should, but just for sake of argument, logically, what else could life possibly be about if it's not all about you? Who else? I mean, you are you. You are you. And what's the first letter of the word unique? The letter U. It's not by accident. Just because unique is unique in English, and there's probably other words in other languages that don't start with the word U, that's not relevant, because English is the only language that's relevant when we're talking about patterns and code, stuff like that. But you are you, okay? And if you aren't the most important thing in the universe, I don't know what is. So me is me, and if I'm not the most important thing in the universe, how else could anything be important? So then we get back to the logic thing, that some people still believe in logic. I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, everybody in the universe can't be the most important because that's a superlative logically, and that's a contradiction. That's why you need to go look at my other videos, guys. You got to look at my other videos, because I discuss and explain clearly why contradictions don't exist. And the sooner that everybody's on board with the fact or the opinion's actually more important, as I've discussed, as soon as we get on board all together that opposition and opposites and contradictions are just a figment of your imagination, that they don't exist? Really? Nobody can prove that they exist. But once we all agree that everything is everything, everything is everything. Everything is everything. There's a song that says everything is everything. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. It equals, everything is everything. If you put an equal sign there, that makes perfect sense. Nothing is everything. Equal. Everything is nothing. Equal. Everything is everything. That's how that works. It's great. It's beautiful. But once we all get on board with that, we won't be actually arguing about anything, because the whole concept of arguing couldn't exist, because we'd all agree, which would be great. Who doesn't want to live in a world where we all agree about everything? Who doesn't want to live in that kind of world? So back to the point of autonomy and your ability to choose and having power over your body. It all turns back to this concept of you being you. And if you aren't the most important thing, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. I think that there's probably some people out there that might think something else could be more important. I don't, but who's to say? Who are you to say that something else is more important than me or than you? So I think that's what it's all about. Because in reality, for the opposite, so those people that call themselves pro-lifers, whatever that even means, because what is life anyway? For you to say that you're pro-life, you have to believe, and this is really wild, but you have to believe as a pro-lifer that there's something outside of you that's more important than you. Except life starts from inside of you. So that's why that doesn't make any sense, right? All life comes from inside, right? I guess this is a chicken and the egg argument, right? There was always an egg, right? There wasn't a chicken first. There was always an egg first. Obviously. Because where else would that chicken have come from except from an egg? It doesn't make sense. Has to have been an egg coming from within, meaning you have control, meaning who's to say. So the only way you can be a pro-lifer is if you believe that there's something outside that dictates value apart from your own ideas and feelings. In the reality of the world that we live in, where ideas and feelings are absolutely the most important thing, and as I've obviously shown, they're eternal. Opinions and feelings are forever. They never change. By definition, feelings and opinions and anything that you think is godly. Like, it's like God. Even though they don't like to use that term, because it's eternal, it never changes. I mean, what's that starting to sound like to you? Just saying. So yeah, the whole thing with it's a pretty simple deal. It's pretty simple. Pro-choice really and truly means that you are in control. Okay, you have the power and ability to choose and be in control, because you are the only thing that matters. Nothing else actually matters, and that's I guess beautiful, right? In addition to the pro-choice thing, we need to implement some Soylent Green stuff, okay? Because it adds to a more beautiful social ecosystem where anybody that starts to become dependent, I mean, just think of all of the problems that would happen. I mean, certain countries would be completely obliterated. For instance, there are certain countries on our planet that would immediately be eliminated because of their dependence. Just gone. How many independent people, independent as in having no needs? I mean, we would never have a population problem. I guess you're wondering, some of you might be wondering, well, who would make the determination of who was dependent or not? Well, you can do one of two things. You just let the government be in control, which is fine, but in nature, that would cause dependence. That could be a little blurred, so everybody might be eliminated and there'd just be a government. That'd be a little awkward because then they wouldn't govern anything. I don't think that that's best, but it could be. I'm whatever, you think about it, you tell me. The other possibility is that you let everybody make their own determination on whether or not they're dependent, because their opinion matters most. So, for instance, if somebody doesn't say that they're dependent on anything, even though they're receiving from society benefits of some kind, financial or otherwise, even though it might look like they're being dependent, as long as they don't believe that they're dependent, it really wouldn't matter. It would be fine. But they'd have to say it. It'd have to be their opinion that they were independent. And I think that would probably be the clearest, easiest way. Therefore, that everybody would be in control at that point of their own faculties. It'd be like the purest form of pro-choice, freedom of choice, and the ability to choose for yourself whether or not you're dependent or independent, and what that means for life and the finality of death. You would get to choose. So I think that the crux of the issue in regards to pro-life and pro-choice is it comes down to your ability to determine whether or not you are dependent or independent. Another aspect of the issue is whether or not you're important, whether or not you embrace the concepts of self-hatred. Some people might think that that's an offensive way to look at it. I think it's loving. I think it's a beautiful way to look at it, because we see the value of self-hatred, and we see the evidence of self-hatred everywhere. So if it is so prevalent, it has to be a good thing, right? Well, that's amazing. That was the second interruption of this fantastic monologue. Completely throws me off my track. Probably throws you off the track too. Who knows what that interruption will be like when you play it back. Good grief. So what I was saying is, we do hate the majority most of the time. The majority is typically disgusting. And that's why democracy couldn't possibly work, because until we get to the point where everybody agrees that contradictions don't exist, when we get to that point, then democracy can work. And even when somebody is saying policy A and somebody is saying policy not A, that's okay. We'll have both policies. And the contradictions that don't exist won't exist. If it doesn't exist, then it won't exist. That's just kind of how it works. I think that's nice. I think that's a great way to make it work. So yeah, pro-choice might have something to do with self-hatred, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Don't take that the wrong way. It's good. You see the value of that. You see my other video about self-hate, and you'll understand a little bit more about what I'm saying. You'll get there. It's my opinion that if this offends you, it's okay. You'll get to the point where you it's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, it says I'm live, so that's the third interruption. Good grief. Who knows if you're even hearing what I'm saying? It's probably so... Is this what they mean by shadow ban? I have 0 followers. How is that possible? It's not. It is possible, and I am being shadow banned, and I'm not at the same time. We'll go with that. It doesn't even exist. But it absolutely exists. But it doesn't, and it does. Same time, doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and stop, because that's a lot of interruptions. I wanted to discuss my word. I might do that later on. I'll try and do a phrase. I'll have to be thinking about it. I've got to figure out why this is getting interrupted so much. The disconnect. Very unusual. When we get to 5G, won't be a problem. 5G is going to solve all of the world's problems. It'll only make the world better. Everybody knows that. Especially the people that are fighting against it. They obviously love it. Obviously. All the people sharing their theories and ideas about 5G and what it's going to do for the world, they all love it. Some of them hate it too, which is beautiful. It's all the same. And it's all different. You get what I'm saying. Pro-choice, it's all about you. I'd love to hear somebody argue that pro-choice is not all about you. Because that will also be, I'll hate that and love it. I will so look forward to that, and I dread the moment that somebody argues that pro-choice is not all about you. I challenge someone to tell me how pro-choice is not all about you, that we know is beautiful. That's a lovely, wonderful thing. Because if it's not all about you, who is it about? And prove it. Prove it. Tell me exactly how it's not all about you. And bring your proof. Which the only proof that we need is opinion. Okay? That's my opinion, though. That's just my opinion. And as we know, when I say just my opinion, that's all that we need. That's more than enough. It's more than enough. So, that's enough. That's enough. This has almost been an hour. There's been interruptions. I apologize. I'm not in control. Except I am control. I control everything because I am in control. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm seeing the seconds go by. This is going to be such a terrible video. I'll just apologize again. But yeah, we're in control. Because of autonomy, we control everything. And when bad things happen, it's on purpose. You chose that. And that's okay. And that's good. So in reality, complaining is kind of weird. Because we're in control. It's the world and the universe. It's all about us. So when bad things happen, there's no such thing as bad things. There is such thing as bad things, but there's not at the same time. Just depends on your perspective. You got to get woke. Got to get woke, guys. Got to get woke. Get woke. It's all about perspective.